BBOR Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. BlackBoxNid88 on Instagram for the bonus podcast. And welcome to BBOR, the home of true crime talk radio and your premier destination for unsolved mysteries, criminal psychology, and exploring the dark side of cyberspace. My name is Ned DeHaan, and I am your host, as well as the creator of AstroPsych 400 here on YouTube, and regular contributor to the Zodiac Killer channel. And a great way to support these shows is just by listening to some more content. But you can also go over to Amazon.com and have a look at the book Killer on a White Horse, written by me, Ned DeHaan. It is a novel, murder mystery, inspired by the Zodiac Manson connection, but it is indeed fictional. However, who doesn't love a good mystery? And there is always the TeeSpring page. Feel free to check out some of the merchandise. And remember, being weird is not a crime. Let the show begin. This episode of Black Box Online Radio is brought to you by Rep Sports and Raze Energy. Are you a fan of energy drinks, protein shakes, and health foods? Well, I sure am. I use the stuff almost every single day. They sell Raze Energy products at my local gym, but you can have them shipped to your home. Use the coupon code NED075, that's NED075, for discounts applied at the checkout. The link is in the description box.
Okay, hello everybody. Today is Monday, another Zodiac Monday. Welcome to the show. Just a couple of quick announcements before we begin. As you can see from the title of this episode, I will be spending the majority of it discussing Mike Rodelli's book, The Hunt for Zodiac, and I was going to release this one last Friday for the Anything Goes segment, but there was some breaking news in the world of the Zodiac Killer mystery. Tom Colbert appeared on Megyn Kelly's SiriusXM show to talk about the Zodiac and his suspect, Gary Francis Post. In fact, the entire Casebreakers organization, including Dale Julin, have endorsed Gary Post as a Zodiac suspect. I'm still not 100% sure how involved Dale Julin is, if he's just an honorary member or he is a full-on member of the Casebreakers, but he seems like the one who has the biggest understanding of the Zodiac mystery. Tom Colbert is the founder of the Casebreakers, and instead of Dale Julin, he appeared on the Megyn Kelly show to discuss their findings, and I can't even sum it up all in 2 or 3 minutes, so I would invite you to listen to that full episode if you haven't heard it already, available on this channel under the name Megyn Kelly Zodiac Killer Show, Tom Colbert and Gary Post, Full Response. As for today's episode, I have just a couple of comments before I get to the segment about Mike Rodelli's The Hunt for Zodiac. And if you're listening to this one on YouTube, you're going to hear, it is Friday, another Anything Goes Friday. I'm just going to play the entire episode as I had done in the, as I had recorded it the first time. LaunchPad 1 listeners will just hear it from the beginning, and it'll sound like any other Friday episode. But as far as the YouTube one, there will be the Friday intro. But I wanted to get to some of your comments first, because last week on the Zodiac Killer News Report, I was talking about somebody's theory when a woman named Melody says that she has a Zodiac suspect named Henning Loggies, who was born in Germany. And when he was 11 years old in 1946, he witnessed a very bizarre meteorological event. And it was the natural formation of crop circles. I mean, maybe it's natural, maybe it's the aliens, who knows. But he was in a field of oats in Germany, and 5 whirlwinds touched down, which I can only gather to be small tornadoes, and they made these naturally forming crop circles, and the 5 points then formed into a pentagram, and then she believes that he was inspired to connect that to his own zodiac sign, which is Gemini, as well as the sign of Hitler, which could possibly be the swastika, but the way that she had written out the statement, I think she was actually referring to Hitler's zodiac star sign, but she hasn't released all of her findings yet, and she says that she has a book in the works. But the only thing online that I could find about Henning Loggies was a statement that did indeed talk about him witnessing this meteorological event, again in 1946 when he was 11 years old, so that would mean that he must have been born in 1935 or thereabouts, I mean, in that range. And the website that has featured this graphic is created by Wolfgang Schindler, and he has a book out about this subject called Shape and Geometry of Crop Circle Formations, and on the cover it actually has the same symbol that was found in the field that was witnessed by Henning Loggies, or a very similar one. It definitely has the pentagram, the 5 points, which can then easily be turned into the zodiac sign, with the circle going through the cross, and the cross meets in the epicenter of the circle. And I did pick up a copy of this in the electronic form, and yes, this is going to be added to my summer reading list, just in case, if I might find something. Sometimes you have to leave no stone unturned, take the road less traveled by, so to speak. But some of you guys left some comments about Henning Loggies as a Zodiac killer suspect, and I would like to get to those now. And the first one comes to us from JTops3000, who says, "Why would witnessing a fantastical weather event lead to homicide? It seems to me that witnessing something so profound would be more likely to lead a person to a life of meteorology rather than a life of crime." Excellent observation, J-Tops. And I responded by saying, "So the honest answer is, I'm not sure, but I did read some of Melody's comments, and she believes that Henning Loggies became a serial killer in Canada first, in British Columbia, so he committed additional murders. The event in the field was an inspiration for the zodiac symbol and perhaps some hidden effects on his ideology. I'm waiting for her book, but I'm not holding my breath. As you can see, there is a certain degree of skepticism that I have, but I'm always curious about what other people have to say in their zodiac theories or their zodiac suspects. But no, it is a fairly solid observation. Just simply being a witness to something like that would definitely push someone more to just having a fascination with weather conditions and weather patterns. You're going to be a storm chaser, someone who hunts tornadoes, rather than someone who is hunting people for sport in California. But there is another very important comment that came in from Albert Forel, who says that he is fluent in the German language and hasn't seen anything that points to the Zodiac being a native German speaker. I mean, I completely agree with this because, well, it's from a twisted roundabout way. When I was reading the book, The Most Dangerous Animal of All by Gary Stewart and Susan Mustafa, it talked about Earl Van Best as a Zodiac killer suspect. And Gary Stewart is the biological son of Earl Van Best. This is Earl Van Best Jr., actually. Gary Stewart's birth name was Earl Van Best III, but they had, he was adopted. It's a long story. And Earl Van Best was said to have been fluent in English, German, and Japanese, and I'm pretty sure he learned a fair degree of Spanish because he spent a lot of time in Mexico, but he more or less grew up trilingual, English being his mother tongue, and his father taught him German and Japanese from a very young age. The Zodiac Killer mystery is filled with Japanese clues, whether it's all of these references to the Mikado, or how about the Exorcist letter, which has what I believe is imitation Japanese writing on it. At the end of the Exorcist letter, it says, "I'll do something nasty, which you'll know I'm capable of." I think it's just somebody writing pretend Japanese, but not real Japanese. And then I began to just simply think, well, are there any German language clues at all in the Zodiac Killer mystery? And this is all back in 2020, but it's relevant to this suspect, Henning Loggies, for the same reason. Because I wanted to know, just, is there any trace of German fluency? And I got online and I was searching around. I couldn't find a single thing. Not only do I not observe anything myself, I also can talk to people like Albert here, who says that he is fluent in German and I'm not. But he is, and he can see that there are no pieces of evidence that suggest that the Zodiac was a native German speaker. And the final point is that all I could find was that there is a suspect out there with the last name German. His name is Kenneth Lester German. I've talked about him in a lot of different episodes. I even did a standalone episode on him. In the second Zodiac Killer News Report, I talked a lot about Kenneth Lester German. So there are lots of things here on this channel if anybody is curious about him. Lots about Earl Van Best as well. So I invite you to like and subscribe to the channel if you'd like to follow along with all of these true crime discussions and going through all of these Zodiac Killer suspects. But that's where I have to leave it at. I mean, yeah, I'm going to read up more about Henning Loggies and maybe something more about the symbology in this crop circle connection, because I want to know more. I mean, do I think that there is going to be a very high chance that I'll find something overwhelmingly pointing toward a German suspect? Not exactly. I really have a very putting it lower on the totem pole, but I'm still going to try because you never know what you may find. And right now, I would like to conclude that segment. And the final thing that I would say before starting the book discussion on Micro Delis, The Hunt for Zodiac, is that there are a number of ways that you can support this channel, and one of them is simply just by listening to some more content. You can go over to LaunchPad 1 and download the audio version of this program for free. LaunchPad 1 is the pure podcast site. You can download this as a podcast, take it on the go, anywhere and anyhow. If you would like to download the video version with the images, you can use YouTube Premium, but that one you have to pay for. Launchpad 1 is free, and there's a link to that in the description box. And in addition to that, there is also the BuyMeACoffee.com page. If you would like to make a contribution to help support the show, then anything is welcome, and you will get a shout out on Zodiac Mondays. And all of the contributions will be going to future efforts for this program, whether it's buying equipment or getting new true crime books to talk to you guys about. And I'm always taking recommendations for future episodes. Absolutely anything is welcome. And I do the Anything Goes Friday segment. It doesn't only have to be Zodiac content. If you have any ideas for future cases, you can put your ideas in the comment section down below. Any subject under the sun or in the darkness is welcome, but I do confess the topic list is getting rather large right now. So without further ado, I would like to play the book discussion on Micro Delis, The Hunt for Zodiac. Okay, hello everybody. Today is Friday. Another Anything Goes Friday. Welcome to the show. And to those of you who follow the Zodiac Killer episodes on this channel, you're in luck because not only was Monday Zodiac Monday, Friday has now become a Zodiac Friday for this particular week, devoting the Anything Goes Friday segment to discussing Micro Deli's book, The Hunt for Zodiac. Micro Deli has been following the Zodiac Killer mystery for decades, and he's also been very involved in getting the material from the police reports shared in various ways. And in this episode, I'm going to be talking about the content of his book, The Hunt for Zodiac, as well as his research process. And this will be one where I'm definitely going to rely on you guys in the audience for responding to some challenge questions. Sometimes on the Zodiac Killer news reports, which come out on Mondays, I ask you guys a challenge question to begin the episode. In this particular one, they're going to be intertwined all throughout the entire program. And if you would like to follow along with all these true crime discussions in the future, whether it's Zodiac Mondays, the Wednesday segment, which used to be the Ask Me Anything, lately been talking about the Long Island serial killer, but the AMAs might return, and the Anything Goes Friday segment, where any subject is fair game, I invite you to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. You can also support this show in some other ways. The first is by going over to Launchpad 1, and you can download the audio of this program for free as a pure podcast. Take it on the go, anywhere and anyhow. If you would like to download the video version, you can use YouTube Premium, but that one you have to pay for. Launchpad 1 is free. And there is always the BuyMeACoffee.com page. If you would like to make a contribution to help support this show and all of these segments that come out on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, as well as all of the bonus episodes, absolutely everything is welcome, and all contributors at BuyMeACoffee.com will get a shout-out on Zodiac Mondays. But in this episode, I hope that it's going to be perceived as a book discussion rather than a traditional book review. Instead of going through everything step by step in a big summary and then just giving some opinions, I'm just going to be looking at some of the ideas that have been shared in the book, The Hunt for Zodiac by Micro Deli, and responding to them. And also, I want to talk about Micro Deli's research process and how this material was obtained. And firstly, I would like to go to one of the recent Zodiac Killer news reports that came out, not last Monday, but the one before, and we had somewhat of a dispute between Tyler Grover and Tom Voigt of ZodiacKiller.com in the comments section, because Tyler made the comment that I had just stopped short of talking about Micro Deli's interviews with Lindsay Robbins, and Lindsay Robbins was a witness to the final Zodiac crime, which was the murder of Paul Stein on October 11th of 1969. I mean, the final confirmed one. There are lots of unconfirmed crimes after that. And there were multiple children of the Robbins family who saw the perpetrator walking away from the crime scene. This was the murder of Paul Stein, who was a taxi driver and killed by the Zodiac killer, and there are eyewitness accounts who saw this person more or less in action, maybe not seeing the exact time that the victim was shot, but they definitely saw somebody at Paul Stein's taxi cab who almost certainly, and in fact certainly, was the killer. But did Mike Rodelli actually interview Lindsay Robbins or any of the Robbins children? And I responded to Tyler Grover by saying something that I've had the opportunity to talk to Mike Rodelli about it in the past, and he said that something that was very bold that I thought, and that is that Lindsay Robbins was an eyewitness to seeing the actual Zodiac killer, and he said 100% that the Zodiac and Arthur Lee Allen were not the same person. In fact, when he was shown a photo of Arthur Lee Allen, he laughed. And yes, it is a guy, Lindsay, as opposed to a girl. But Tom Voigt responded by just simply asking the question, did Mike Rodelli interview Lindsay Robbins? And Tyler Grover says, yep, Lindsay told Rodelli that he didn't hear a gunshot, but he saw what looked like a knife in the hand of the Zodiac when he was at the Stein murder scene. He felt that he was using the knife to cut the shirt according to what Rodelli told Lindsay. So there's your witness seeing a knife in the cab. And Tom Voigt responded by saying, first of all, Mike Rodelli didn't interview Lindsay. It was someone named Jim Dean. Secondly, Lindsay told Dean he assumed a knife was used because of all the blood and that no gunshot was heard. Lindsay never claimed to have seen a knife, period. And then Tyler Grover went on to send me something that was allegedly written by Jim Dean, this former member of law enforcement who was involved with the interviews, something that Jim Dean had posted on a message board in 2010. And Jim Dean writes, I have talked to the Robbins kids extensively, and they are a remarkable couple of kids. Some background. There is an upper-class neighborhood, and they are in an upper-class neighborhood, The Robbins' father was, and maybe still is, a surgeon. At the time of the murder, the senior Robbins was about a block away from attending a formal dinner at the Belgian embassy. To continue, the first kid at the window saw the driver and thought that he looked sick or something. Lindsay Robbins and Rebecca Robbins went to the window and saw the driver laying across the front seat of the taxicab with his head toward the passenger floor. His head was in the lap of another man who was the passenger. Rebecca saw blood and said out loud, he's stabbing the man. She was seeing blood on the victim and saw the glint of the knife, so she assumed a stabbing was taking place. No shots were heard by anyone. And I had the opportunity once again to ask Mike Rodelli some follow-up questions. The first one I asked him was about the interview process, and Mike Rodelli responded very clearly along the guidelines that Tom Voigt said, that he never interviewed Lindsay Robbins, and he also was unfamiliar with the story about the glint of the knife. And then I asked the next question, well, was this really Jim Dean who posted this on a message board in 2010? And Rodelli asked him, I didn't talk to Jim Dean directly, but Jim Dean responded by saying, yes, he wrote out that segment, but he didn't remember all of the reasons why. He believed that somebody had asked him to tell his side of the story about interviewing the Robbins kids, eyewitnesses to the Zodiac killer. And I am giving 1 point to Tyler Grover and 1 point to Tom Voigt. I know it's never entertaining when it ends in a tie, but it's not like there are any real points to begin with. But firstly, Mike Rodelli did not conduct the interviews with the Robbins kids, and the second one is that Jim Dean does say that they had, one of the Robbins kids, not Lindsay but Rebecca, saw the glint of a knife and thought that the victim was being stabbed. It is very odd that Mike Rodelli, the author of The Hunt for Zodiac, found that something that he didn't recall, and he almost disputes that, saying that Jim Dean may have forgotten something, but Rodelli did not. He thought that that was rather unusual, and I believe that Rodelli's assessment is a little bit more on the lines of what Tom Voigt was talking about, thinking that the Robbins kids assumed that there was a knife because they didn't hear a gunshot, but as we said, Jim Dean conducted those interviews, and this is very important because perhaps you'll remember out there that there is something called the Zodiac Killer hoax theory. There's a book called The Myth of the Zodiac Killer by Thomas Henry Horn, which states that the piece of Paul Stein's bloody shirt that was mailed in Zodiac letters was not cut off at the crime scene, but it was cut off after it had been placed in the crime lab. And if somebody saw a knife at the crime scene, one of the eyewitnesses being the Robbins kids, who contributed the details that gave us the Zodiac Killer composite sketches, well, that's a pretty big challenge to the hoax theory. But, I mean, there seems to be still some disputes, but this is where the information is coming from, and Jim Dean has shared his story online, which I was just reading off. With the actual bulk of Microdeli's book, The Hunt for Zodiac, I would like to begin with the first confirmed Zodiac killing, and that is the Lake Herman Road murders, which took place on December 20th of 1968, that saw the deaths of David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen. Microdeli believes that the Zodiac killer was a Norwegian-American named Qvale. His first name is spelled Kjell, K-J-E-L-L, and Qvale is spelled Q-V-A-L-E. He is one of the, I guess, more recognized people who is promoting a suspect who is not completely of North American origin. Yes, there are several of them out there, but perhaps one of the more famous suspects who comes from the European continent. Kjell Qvale was born in Norway, the city of Trondheim, Norway, actually in 1919. He would have been 50 years old in 1969 during the peak of Zodiac activity, and I think that Rodeli's suspect is definitely one of the richest, and I mean, I literally mean that, one of the wealthiest people ever to have been accused of being the Zodiac killer. He was a prominent businessman involved with the importing of vehicles, automobiles. That was his trade and his passion, particularly British cars, but also Italian at some times. And on December 20th of 1968, David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen are in a parked car at Lake Herman Road, which is more or less a parking lot or gravel area on the side of the road that connects Vallejo and Benicia. So, Microdeli wrote in The Hunt for Zodiac that he believes that the Zodiac taped a pencil flashlight to the gun barrel of a .22 caliber firearm. The Zodiac comes out of his car, seeing the two teenagers, and he holds up the gun and the flashlight. As I said, the flashlight is taped to the gun barrel. And then the two teenagers are ordered out of the car. And then his analysis is that Betty Lou Jensen was actually shot first, and then the Zodiac killer turned the gun on David Faraday. Betty Lou Jensen would run a little bit before she was shot, and she is definitely running away, and David Faraday is standing more or less closer to the car, I think for simplicity's sake. He is standing closer to the car, and she is farther away from the vehicle. But I thought that this was a very bold claim, because most people tend to think that David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen are ordered out of the vehicle, and that David is shot first in the head, and that either the killer told Betty Lou to run, or just kind of teasing her in some way, or playing some type of game. Hey, go on, get out of here, even though he fully knew well that he was going to shoot her in the back. Or maybe after David Faraday was shot, she just screamed and freaked out and ran away on her own accord. But in both scenarios, you would have David Faraday being shot first. I mean, in those things, whether Betty Lou ran away on her own or whether the Zodiac ordered her to run, David Faraday is shot first. Which one makes more sense to you? And that's really the first challenge question I would like to ask you guys. Who was shot first at Lake Herman Road? Was it David or Betty Lou? And you can give your reasons why in the comments section down below. One of the bigger reasons why people think David was shot first is they believe that the Zodiac had a habit of neutralizing the male victims first and then turning toward the women, because the Zodiac went to Blue Rock Springs Park on July 4th of 1969 and approached Mike Mageau's side of the car door. Well, that's not really a good way of putting it. He approached the passenger side of the car where the victims were sitting, and Mike Mageau, the male victim, was sitting in the passenger seat. Darlene Ferrin was in the driver's seat. At Lake Berryessa, the Zodiac stabbed Ryan Hartnell first and stabbed Cecilia Shepard second. So, I also would like to point out some details that are discussed in the hunt for Zodiac, and that is that the Zodiac would go on to take credit for the murders in a letter, and he would talk about how he was able to see the victims at night. How was he able to get these clear shots at Betty Lou Jensen? In the past, the investigator, I believe it's actually Les Lundblad, gave the theory that Betty Lou Jensen would have been running away from the Zodiac on a clear night, so her body would have been silhouetted, and even though the Zodiac couldn't make out her features, he's just shooting at the silhouette against the dark outline of her body, and he would have been able to see her even if she had been running in the dark. The Zodiac disputed this, and he said that he taped the pencil flashlight to a gun barrel. Now, that is very important because Mike Rodelli points out that most people wouldn't use the term gun barrel. Instead, they would say the barrel of a gun. And it just so happens that Kjell Qvale, Mike Rodelli's suspect, owned a horse named what? Gun Barrel. And he owned many horses, actually, and I'll talk about that later on. But he owned a horse named Gun Barrel. And I asked Mike Rodelli about this. Okay, I see what you're doing. You're finding these types of linguistic connections. But what do you think that means? Do you think that that was something that was intentionally done by your suspect? Let's say hypothetically, if Kjell Qvale were the Zodiac killer, would he have done that intentionally, or are these just unconscious usage of this of the same words? Like, is it just unconscious word choice because he was familiar with these words and used them in his daily life, and they slipped in to the Zodiac letters? And Rodelli said that it was the first. He genuinely believed that his suspect, Kjell Qvale, was giving clues to his identity, such as owning a horse named Gun Barrel and talking about taping the pencil flashlight to the gun barrel. So that's with Lake Herman Road. But you're also going to see that the Zodiac killer is going to do some similar things at Blue Rock Springs, the second confirmed crime, July 4th, 1969. Mike Mageau and Darlene Ferrin are shot sitting in a car at Blue Rock Springs Park, and this is the first time that the Zodiac killer will make a phone call afterwards, and he says that he shot 2 kids with a 9mm Luger. He also killed those kids last year, referring to the Lake Herman Road murders, and then there's the famous goodbye, where he's almost mocking the dispatcher, Nancy Slover. And I'm going to share one point, though, about Lake Berryessa really fast, because the third confirmed Zodiac crime is the Lake Berryessa stabbing, which occurred on September 27th of 1969, and this saw the murder of Cecilia Shepard and the stabbing of Brian Hartnell. Brian would go on to survive, and the Zodiac brought pre-cut lengths of rope. He was wearing the hooded costume. He was carrying a firearm but didn't use it because he stabbed the victims after they were tied up, and then he went on to write a message on the car door at Lake Berryessa. He wrote the Zodiac symbol, the word Vallejo, the dates of Zodiac activity, and the words, "buy knife." Now, in Mike Rodelli's book, maybe the most valuable part of the hunt for Zodiac is the discussion that he had with the profiler Richard Walter, who talks about his assessment of the Zodiac killer. You have this guy who's targeting couples, right? Think what we said: Lake Herman Road, Blue Rock Springs, and Lake Berryessa. Then Paul Stein, whom I've already discussed, was the final confirmed victim, the taxi driver murdered on October 11th of 1969. No female was present at the actual murder scene, mind you. What does that mean? What did Richard Walter say? He said that this is not a disorganized killer. This is a power-assertive personality. The Zodiac murdered the victims at Lovers' Lanes when practically no one else was around, yet he did not mutilate the victims because it's not about the emotion. This isn't some type of feeling-driven killer. This is a cold, methodical, and calculating killer. Everything is deliberate. If the victims had been stabbed 90 times at Lake Berryessa, and that does happen in some crime scenes, even more than 90 times, victims can be stabbed if someone breaks out into a rage. It's just that's rage, that's an emotion, that's an emotionally driven killer. This is all cold, methodical, and calculating. This is deliberate. Somebody has a specific plan. Other examples that Richard Bolger used were taping the pencil flashlight to the gun barrel at Lake Herman Road, carrying the pre-cut lengths of rope at Lake Berryessa, and Richard Bolger even went a step further by saying that this goes quite against a lot of the statements that people have said about the Zodiac, thinking that he was some guy who was very well educated but didn't have a very high-paying job, or maybe he wasn't even well-educated, but he was just very well-read, and that maybe some guy who likes to read a lot of books, science fiction, poetry, classical literature, and of course is into different types of music, but he doesn't have the strongest educational background, and of course is working some type of menial, solitary job. Richard Bolger would dispute that, and he would say that this is someone who is very successful, high profile, and everything that the Zodiac has done in the confirmed crimes is organized. Which one do you think it is? And I would like to ask you that. Do you believe that the Zodiac was a successful, career-driven individual who was cold, methodical, and calculating? Or do you believe that the Zodiac was somebody, as we said, the gifted underachiever, the gifted underperformer, someone who was very well read, but did not have his life together? And I really want to reemphasize that particular point because the Zodiac, according to Richard Bolger, is someone who has his life together. He has all of the major components. Like, he's not some type of sad little man, as some people have criticized certain Zodiac theories, saying, oh, they just think that there's this sad little man that got lucky and outsmarted everyone. I mean, halfway outsmarted him. The other half would have been luck. Sheer dumb luck, that is. And then, I mean, Mike Rodelli and Richard Bolger would definitely be in contrast to that, saying that, no, this could even be a prominent businessman, such as Kjell Qvale. I really cannot get over a particular detail about Kjell Qvale, and that is that he is just a speed junkie. He just seems like he is absolutely obsessed with speed. Like, did you ever watch the movie Talladega Nights or something with Will Ferrell? And he just he's playing the character Ricky Bobby and just says, "I want to go fast. I want to go fast." That's the way I think of Kjell Qvale, because I mean he's into auto racing, of course, because he works in the car business. He was into boat racing at Lake Tahoe. As I said, he owned numerous racing horses. He owned numerous thoroughbreds, and he was into not only breeding, but into horse racing. And the famous story that Mike Rodelli likes to tell about him is that Kjell Qvale once unofficially tied the world record in the 100-meter dash. I mean, he's just constantly dealing with this, I want to go fast. He just has this overwhelming need for speed. And uh, even if we could separate ourselves from the Zodiac scene, I would just like to have known Kjell Qvale personally. I think he's a fascinating individual, and there is a book out there that has been written about some of his ideas and observations from someone named Kevin Nelson. It's called Lunches with Mr. Q, the Q being for Qvale, talking about his life and his ideas on business, as well as his uh, love of cars and just the need for speed. And I have just downloaded this on my Kindle. I'm making a summer reading list right now, so I'm hoping to explore that one because I just want to learn more details about this particular person. And it doesn't only have to be Zodiac Killer related because, as I said, Kjell Qvale was doing so many more things, especially someone who has come from Norway to America and just had the American dream, has just had the ability to achieve a lot of success in this country. I just want to hear the whole thing. Now, as far as the Norwegian angle, are there any clues that would suggest that Qvale, a Norwegian, was responsible for the Zodiac crimes? Number one, Kjell Qvale was born in Trondheim, Norway, and Trondheim is the sister city to where? Vallejo, California. Number two, I mean, this isn't exactly about Norway specifically, but Qvale's parents were Norwegian, right? And Qvale's father was born on September 27th. The Lake Berryessa stabbing occurred on September 27th, and Qvale's mother passed away on December 20th, and December 20th was the date of the Lake Herman Road murders. So you have two major dates in the lives of his parents, a birth date and a death date that correspond to moments of Zodiac activity. And, I mean, do you think that that is something significant? I mean, the first time that I heard about that, the dates linking up like that, somebody presented it to me and said that it could be an act of synchronicity with a Z, or perhaps it could be a genuine Zodiac killer clue. And then the other Norwegian clue would be that the Zodiac would write the SLA letter in 1974 and say that SLA pronounced slay, an old Norse word meaning kill, and that somebody such as Qvale, a Norwegian American, would have been very well aware of that, or he would have been aware of that, let's just say. Qvale came to the United States when he was 10 years old, and Tom Voigt has a video on his channel, Zodiac Killer Official, of Qvale talking about business, and I believe it's actually a bank commercial. I was just watching it for the 12th time yesterday. That was the first time I actually noticed that there's this little thing about the bank at the end, because the whole time and every time I've been watching it, I was paying attention to the way that he talks, because, as we said, he's a Norwegian American, and he had a very hard accent in the video. He definitely sounds like he is someone who is from Northern Europe. And Nancy Slover, the dispatcher who spoke to the Zodiac killer, said that he did not have any accent. He was speaking in a monotone, but there was no discernible foreign accent. Brian Hartnell, who also talked to the Zodiac killer at Lake Berryessa, said there was no noticeable foreign accent. And I'm not 100% sure, but when I was listening to the Atlanta Monster podcast, they played a segment of Qvale's phone call with Michael Butterfield, and I wanted to go back and find the clip, but the Atlanta Monster podcast has numerous episodes. Season 2 is devoted to the Zodiac Killer, and during that clip, it's about 5 seconds long, you can hear Qvale talking, and he has absolutely no Norwegian accent of any kind. He sounds completely North American, and he's talking about how if he could just meet Mike Rodelli, then he would give him his side of the story and he could convince him that he wasn't the Zodiac killer. So, as I said, I don't know 100%, but I can give you my honest take on the subject, why he sounds different in the bank commercial video that's available on Tom Voigt's channel. It's because he's telling the story about growing up in Norway and his love of horses, and said when he grew up in Norway and he had a little bit of extra pocket money, he would go for a horse ride. I think that he was putting it on. Like, some people can turn up their accents or turn it off, and I deal with this all the time because I'm a West Virginian, and I can slip into the twang if I want to, or if I start getting fired up about a particular subject, people who aren't from West Virginia or the Deep South will notice it. Hey, your Southern accent is coming out. I mean, it can be done very easily, and I think that he wanted to sound a little bit more Norwegian in that video because he's telling a story of his Norwegian childhood. I'm just guessing. I didn't know the guy. That's just a wild guess. It's not even an educated guess. It's a wild guess. But it's something that made sense to me. But in his daily life, I don't think that he had any pronounced Norwegian accent of any kind. And as far as his age goes, I have discussed this with Mike Rodelli in the past, and he said that 50 years old might seem old for a Zodiac killer suspect, but Qvale looked much younger, and he did not look 50 years old at all. A lot of Mike Rodelli's book is devoted to his discussions with the Robbins kids, though. As I said, he is not the one who is asking the questions. He is using Jim Dean as an intermediary because Jim Dean was a former member of law enforcement and they thought it was a little bit more appropriate. But to get the commentary from the Robbins kids as well as from Officer Donald Falk, who allegedly saw the Zodiac killer as well, is something that Mike Rodelli wanted to do for a very particular reason. Lindsay Robbins and Donald Falk both were not interviewed for Robert Graysmith's 1986 book. And I believe there's something in The Hunt for Zodiac about how Donald Falk got a message from Graysmith saying, okay, I didn't interview you for the first book, Zodiac, from '86, but he was going to interview Donald Falk for the next book, Zodiac Unmasked, but that also didn't take place. And it just seemed very puzzling to Mike Rodelli about why that would happen. People who actually saw the Zodiac and could contribute information. But Lindsay Robbins was interviewed by other people. The quotation that I had brought up about laughing at Arthur Lee Allen as a suspect, or saying that Arthur Lee Allen was absolutely not the person he witnessed at the taxicab, was from an interview that was conducted with George Boart. And that's just something that I found in The Hunt for Zodiac. It's another piece of info from this book. But on the notion of Qvale and a witness, Lindsay Robbins, during the interview with Jim Dean, they asked the question about Qvale, where it came up. I believe it's actually Lindsay Robbins who even kind of figures out where they're going with this, and he says that the Qvale family lives in their neighborhood. That's why the Stein murder could have possibly happened in Rodelli's theory. It's close by to where Qvale lived. The Qvale family lived in the same neighborhood as the Robbins family. And what Lindsay said was, don't you think I would recognize my friend's dad if he had been the Zodiac? I've been to their house. They've been to my house. If it was him, I would have just said that. I would have said that. And both Jim Dean and Mike Rodelli thought that was rather shocking. And then they're like, oh no, everything's just going to come to an end. However, it turned out that there were some misleading pieces of info, because even though Lindsay Robbins had been friends with other members of the Qvale family and he had been in the house, he hadn't actually met Qvale until the 1970s. And the final crime that we've been talking about, the Stein shooting, that occurred on October 11th of 1969. He also had never seen Qvale wear a pair of glasses, even though they had numerous photos of Qvale wearing glasses throughout the 1960s, and by the 1970s, Qvale had changed his hairstyle, he grew out sideburns, and he looked nothing like the composite sketch. And what Lindsay Robbins said, mostly to himself during the interview, according to Jim Dean, was he just began muttering, "Can't be him, it can't be my friend's dad," something to that effect, not wanting to believe that someone whom he had known personally could have possibly been the serial killer that was the Zodiac. And also, Lindsay Robbins provided perhaps a more convincing piece of info. And it's not even related to Qvale, but he said, as a witness who had actually seen the Zodiac killer, that the composite sketches are very accurate. And according to the book The Hunt for Zodiac, Rebecca Robbins, his sister, also said that the composite sketches they have are accurate. That's what the killer looked like. So that definitely provides some food for thought when we're dealing with some suspects who look absolutely nothing like the sketches, and then we have to provide some type of explanation. Oh, well, it was dark outside. Maybe they didn't get a good look at him. Maybe they didn't truly see what was going on. But anyway, I would just like to ask you about which suspects do you think look the most like the Zodiac Killer composite sketch, which was after the Stein shooting. And again, this came from the Robbins kids. Officer Donald Falk did not contribute to the composite sketches, so please weigh in the comments section down below, as well as responding to any of the other challenge questions in this particular episode. And I should point out that while this is a book discussion about The Hunt for Zodiac by Mike Rodelli, he actually has two written arrangements of his research in book form. One is The Hunt for Zodiac, and the other is In the Shadow of Mount Diablo, which you can get in printed form. And when I was asking Mike Rodelli about the differences, he said even though he is going into his same research in both books, In the Shadow of Mount Diablo went through a more rigorous editing process, so he definitely recommends that people would read that one. And the information will mostly come in similar ways, but I don't know about you guys, I'm definitely an electronic books kind of person. I love having the Kindle, and I can take my entire library with me, also using the Kindle Fire a lot, but sometimes the printed versions can contain a little bit more material and some extra things that we wouldn't find in the electronic ones. But in regards to Microdeli suspect Qvale, he is someone who may have been thinking in a slightly different way, because not all suspects live as close to one of the murder scenes as Qvale did. He lived very close to the site of the Stein murder on October 11th of 1969, and Microdeli had a very interesting statement about the bus bomb diagram, because the Zodiac killer threatened school children. He's threatened to get the school children as they come bouncing off the bus, and he also made a diagram of the famous bus bomb. Now, I don't believe that anybody has actually seen the hard prototype of this bus bomb, and there's some doubt to whether or not it actually existed. But what Microdeli was hypothesizing in the Hunt for Zodiac is that it's not an actual bomb. It's a diagram of the Presidio Heights neighborhood where Qvale lived, and it would match up to a map of Presidio Heights, and he could show different places, so to speak. And I think that that brings us to another important challenge question, and it does not come from Michael Rodelli. Actually, it comes from another Michael, Michael Cole, who is the author of the Zodiac Revisited trilogy. I've had the chance to talk to him a couple times, also interviewed both of these guys, Mike Rodelli and Michael Cole, for the Zodiac Killer channel's Interview with the Expert series. If you haven't heard that one yet, I invite you to visit the Zodiac Killer channel, as well as the Zodiac Killer channel's podcast, Serial Killers Today, available anywhere podcasts are, including iHeartRadio. But what Michael Cole said was that we don't want to admit it, but evil people tend to tell the truth. What do you make of all these wild accusations about the Zodiac killer and all of the things that he claimed that were unsubstantiated, like the bus bomb, for example, or talking about how he is hiding some type of bomb that is going to kill the children? And also, the Zodiac said that he had murdered more people than they could verify. He wrote plus 37 on one of his letters, but some people think that that means that the Zodiac killer had murdered 37 people. And I would really like to bring this challenge question beyond just the bus bomb, because do you believe that the Zodiac was truthful most of the time or not? And you can respond any way you want, because when the Zodiac killer starts writing letters, he begins by saying something to the effect of, I'm going to state the facts that only I and the police know, that this is what happened at Christmas at Lake Herman, and this is what happened to the girl on the 4th of July at Blue Rock Springs Park. And then, as time goes by, there appears to be some gaps between the Zodiac trying to prove that he committed the crimes and also taking credit for them, because with the Kathleen Johns incident, that was the attempted abduction of the woman and her baby off of Highway Route 132. It wasn't until months after that that somebody wrote a letter saying, I gave a ride to a woman and her baby. Obviously, it was talking about Kathleen Johns, but could somebody have learned about it in a different way? It wasn't so immediate, and it wasn't providing a lot of specific information about what had happened. Like, I'm going to state some facts once again that only I, the police, and, well, that lady Kathleen Johns would know. Why is the Zodiac making all of these accusations? Is he telling the truth? Did he actually abduct Kathleen Johns? Did he actually go to Lake Tahoe and abduct Donna Lass and write the Donna Lass postcard with the Pines card? Or is he just making this stuff up? Like, what on earth happened? I mean, because I really think that it could go either way, and it's one thing that I'm mostly undecided on. My absolute gut instinct, though, when I first began looking into anything Zodiac related, was that the Zodiac was a total liar. If he said that he was trying to detonate a bus bomb but it didn't work, I was like, he's lying. There never was a bus bomb. I mean, he could have just recreated one, I suppose. I mean, if his bus bomb turned out to be a dud because he was swamped out by the rain they had a while back. I mean, that's what I thought back years ago. I was like, the reason why this person is saying these things is because he wants to lie to people. He wants to confuse them just so he makes himself look tough, and they'll never actually figure it out because they're going on a wild goose chase. And the same thing with the 37 victims, or what is that the one letter where he says, I've killed 11 people to date, or I've killed 12 people to date, or increasing the body count. I was like, that stuff's not real. No, if it were real, then he would have tried to prove it. And the Zodiac Killer did so much more than just saying, I shall state some facts that only I and the police know. Let's look after the Lake Berryessa stabbing. The Zodiac was wearing the hooded costume that had the Zodiac symbol on it. I mean, no matter what, then that is definitely a Zodiac murder. Who was actually in that costume, and like, is there more than one person? We'll talk about that in a second. But I think what's much more telling is that the Zodiac's wearing the costume. It has the symbol. He has the victims tied up, and he stabs them. Now, I don't believe the Zodiac was a surgeon. Even if he was, he should have known that just stabbing people 6 times in the back or 10 times would create a high chance that they were going to die. So he had no certainty that the victims would even live long enough to tell their story to anyone. I don't see how anyone could have lived to tell the story of the costume and say that this guy stabbed me while he was wearing the Zodiac symbol. So the Zodiac was expecting that Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were going to die. So then, what does he do? He goes to Brian Hartnell's car and he writes a message on it, the Zodiac symbol, the word Vallejo, the dates of Zodiac activity, and by knife. I also believe that this substituted a letter because the Zodiac made a phone call saying that he was responsible for the crime. He said, I think that's the one where it says, I want to report a murder, no a double murder, or something about the Carmen Gia, which is where he wrote the message on Brian Hartnell's Carmen Gia. Some people ask, how did he know that that was Brian Hartnell's car? Well, there are 2 possible ways, I think. One is that he could have been paying close attention to the people coming in and out of the park, and what I think is perhaps a little bit more plausible, it was simply the only car around, and they were the only people in that specific area. That's why he wasn't interrupted when he's having this conversation that could have gone on as long as 15 minutes. So he wrote the message on the car door and made the phone call to prove that he committed the Lake Berryessa stabbing. Then, after the murder of Paul Stein on October 11th of 1969, the Zodiac is going to do something different. He's going to cut off a piece of Paul Stein's shirt, and he's going to mail that in with multiple letters to prove that he is the killer. And I honestly believe this in every fiber of my being, that the reason why he did that was paying homage to Jack the Ripper, because in the From Hell letter from Jack the Ripper, it contained half of a kidney that may have come from one of the victims. Her name was Catherine Eddowes, and she was murdered in what is called the double event. The murders of Liz Stride and Catherine Eddowes, 2 people were murdered in the same night, and her kidney was removed, and according to the legend, the kidney was cut in half and then put in some type of solution, some type of alcohol. It was really, I don't even think we know 100% based on this, and that was included with the From Hell letter. So I think that that's why the Zodiac took Paul Stein's shirt. I did an episode once where somebody asked me the challenge question, do you think the Zodiac Killer wanted to make a phone call after the murder of Paul Stein, but he got scared because he was in Presidio Heights and there were too many people around? My answer was no, because he already has Paul Stein's shirt in every theory but the hoax theory, so he doesn't have to make a phone call. He has the proof that he committed the crime, and if he mails in a piece of Paul Stein's bloody shirt, almost nobody would doubt the authenticity of that. But I said we would come back to the point about who's in the costume. In The Hunt for Zodiac, Mike Rodelli talks about the possibility of multiple killers, and this is in one of the earlier sections in the book, but he's looking at the crimes, and I think many of us do this, when we see Lake Herman Road, Blue Rock Springs, Lake Berryessa, and the Stein murder. They're very different. There are several similarities between Lake Herman Road and Blue Rock Springs, where you have a man and a woman who are both in a car in a secluded area, and I think the biggest difference is that one of the victims survived the Blue Rock Springs shooting, Mike Mageau, but at Lake Berryessa, absolutely it's different. The crime is not committed by gun, it's committed by knife. the victims were killed during the daytime, not at nighttime. The victims were tied up with pre-cut lengths of rope. At Blue Rock Springs and Lake Herman Road, they were not tied up at all. They were not restrained at all. And, of course, the message on the car door, there were no messages written on the car door to the best of my knowledge at either of the first two crime scenes. And then you get to the Stein murder, which is also very different. No woman is present. It's not in a secluded area. I mean, even if it's not a very well-lit area in Presidio Heights, it's not a lover's lane. And as we said, only one person is present in the car, and it's the taxi driver. That person was deliberately driven to that particular location. So, is there any possibility that these are multiple killers, that there was some type of multiple killers operation? And Mike Rodelli points to a particular connection to The Mikado, the operetta by Gilbert and Sullivan, which the Zodiac would quote in several letters. And he says in The Hunt for Zodiac that in a stage play or a musical or an operetta, sometimes you have people who are writing different sections. Like in a musical, somebody would write the lyrics and some people would write and compose the music. You'll see this all the time. It'll say lyrics by, music by, or if it's a stage play that has a lot of dialogue, it'll say book by, lyrics by, music by. And he begins to think that, was there some type of possibility that people were composing a very, very sinister, heinous form of art imitating life, so to speak, meaning that it's almost like bringing a four-act play to life, and I didn't get those exact words in Mike Rodelli's book, that was someone else's theory, but he begins to think of it that way. There's the letter writer who's almost like the lyricist, and then there is the person who's actually committing the crimes who's thinking of himself as like the musician, because that's what the Gilbert and Sullivan connection is. It's really trying to show that there are two minds at work. However, the handwriting on the car door at Lake Berryessa is very similar to the handwriting that is in the Zodiac Killer letters. So there's a brief moment of postulation in The Hunt for Zodiac where Mike Rodelli talks about, could there have been one person who committed Lake Herman Road, Blue Rock Springs, and the Stein murder, and a second person committed the Lake Berryessa stabbing, and that person is the one who wrote the letters? I mean, it's an unsolved case. Anything is possible. But I think that there are two issues with that. The first one is that, already we have to kind of make assumptions. We have a set of crimes that have been attributed to one person, and we have to begin to think, maybe it's just two, and then we could just go on forever. Well, maybe there were 4 different killers. Maybe there were 75 people who were involved with this. I mean, I've done that already on this channel, and you can hear all of my episodes, the Zodiac Killer, Thrill Kill Club Theory, Group Murder Theory, and I have countless episodes on all of these subjects. But I should also be very clear in The Hunt for Zodiac. After talking to the profiler Richard Walter, Rodelli had somewhat of a reversal on that, and then I believe that through those conversations, he became almost certainly convinced that the Zodiac Killer was a single person who committed those crimes in 68 and 69, that it was just one person, because of what we said before about the power assertive personality. But, I definitely think about it from time to time, because we also have a little bit of a variance in the description of the killer at Lake Berryessa, someone who was estimated to have been 6 feet tall, and we have witness sightings at Blue Rock Springs and the Stein shooting, meaning Mike Mageau, who survived the Blue Rock Springs shooting, and the Robbins kids, who are responsible for the Zodiac sketches. Their eyewitness testimony became the Zodiac composite sketches. They both said that there was a perpetrator who was 5 feet 8 inches tall. Well, which is it? Is the guy 5'8" or is he 6 feet tall? The way that people try to reconcile this with a single killer theory is that at Lake Berryessa, the Zodiac was most likely wearing very thick-soled shoes. He was most likely standing on uneven ground, and the most important thing would be the Lake Berryessa hood, which could have added an inch, 2 inches, maybe even 3 inches to his height. Maybe. I am just being generous at that point. But what do you really think about anything like that? That would be another question. Is it possible that more than one person was involved with the Zodiac killer murders. And that isn't even the whole thing about, like, the music and lyrics person. It's absolutely kind of sickening to think of it that way, but where one person is committing the murders and one person is writing the lyrics, and some people are just getting off on this thinking that they're artistic in some type of sinister way, but people do things like that. It's definitely not unheard of. But that there were actually two different killers, not just a killer and a letter writer, but that really is a challenge question. Is it possible that there was more than one killer in the Zodiac crimes? And if you're going to respond to that question, please say why or why not. What is making you think that? So, about Qvale as a Zodiac killer suspect, Mike Rodelli also points out that he was someone who was very much pulled in to the elite circles. He's in an affluent lifestyle and neighborhood. He has a prestigious job. He is very rich. He's a wealthy man, but he's not completely confined to the lifestyles of the rich and famous. Most particularly in 1947, he experienced a UFO incident, and he was one of the earliest people to go on the record talking about UFOs, and something that wouldn't have been completely well accepted by the high societies of America and the business elites. And another interesting thing about Qvale is, if we're talking about the 1940s, he was also a naval pilot during World War II. As we said, he came to the United States. Oh, that would have been 1929. Yeah, he was in World War II as a naval pilot. And Mike Rodelli even talks about at Lake Berryessa, the footprints that they found have been attributed to wing walker shoes. And he talks about how most likely this is somebody who was ex-Navy or ex-Air Force, because they would be the people who would have been in possession of wing walkers. There was an Air Force base that was very close by. Well, not exactly close by, Travis Air Force Base. It is equidistant to Mount Diablo, as is Lake Berryessa, so said Gareth Penn in his book Time 17. But, I mean, Mike Rodelli even talks about, could these have been in possession of someone who had been a naval pilot, such as Qvale. And, I mean, I really don't have all of the answers to the questions, but I'm still just very curious. And right now, I really just want to know, what are your answers to the questions that I've said through here? You can choose one. If there's one challenge question that stood out to you the most, you can share that. Or if you think there is that these are all equally important, you want to make a list of all the questions that were discussed in this episode and then jump around and try to find each one and just say what you want in the comment section. Absolutely, is anything is welcome. And I would like to thank Mike Rodelli for not only writing the book The Hunt for Zodiac, but also talking to me personally, because you don't always get these opportunities to talk to the writer of the book and, hey, what did you mean when you said this? Where you're like asking some type of follow-up questions. And Mike Rodelli is still in touch with Jim Dean, so we even got some clarity on those comments that were made at the beginning of the episode. But I guess another ultimate challenge question would be, what do you think about Qvale as a Zodiac suspect? And I'm really curious, though, about this power assertive personality, how you guys will respond to that. Somebody who is doing this as some type of thrill kill setup, living the double life, and it is purely done in a methodical way, not someone who is trying to take out his rage on society, but rather someone who is literally hunting people for sport, the way that the Zodiac killer said. I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than hunting wild game in the forest, because man is the most dangerous animal of all. And I want to hear your takes on the subject, and I think that will be all from me now, and anybody can write the show at BlackBoxOnlineRadio@AOL.com. You can also get me on Facebook. My personal Facebook is in the description box, and there is always BlackBoxNid88 over on Instagram, and I will see you over there for the bonus podcast. Until next time.